1977, Steven Spielberg released the sci-fi film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. After it was a huge hit, producers wanted a sequel to be made. After seeing how terrible Jaws 2 was, Spielberg wanted to helm the sequel himself, despite the fact he had no interest in a sequel. Originally, he wrote a treatment for the sequel as Watch the Skies, about extraterrestrial scientists who set their sights on a human family to dissect and learn from. The concept was later fleshed out by John Sayles, and the movie was changed to Night Skies, as the original title's rights were owned by someone. Spielberg picked Tobe Hooper to direct the film, and filming was supposed to start after Spielberg finished with Raiders of the Lost Ark. However, this never came to be. Hooper actually suggested to Spielberg that instead of a science fiction film, they should do a ghost story, and the idea of Poltergeist was born. They worked on the treatment together, and Spielberg ended up co-writing and co-producing the film while directing E.T. at the time, where many of the ideas of Night Skies ended up, and had Hooper directing. It became a huge hit and was one of the highest grossing films of 1982, and with this, producers wanted a sequel. Spielberg and Hooper didn't want to be a part of it, so it was written and produced by the other writers of the first film, Michael Gray and Mark Victor, and directed by Brian Gibson. I'm one of the very few who think that the original Poltergeist isn't a very good film. It just feels like a sanitized and uninteresting ghost story. It's possibly due to the fact I didn't see the film until adulthood and didn't grow up with it like a lot of other people did, but I just found it to be bland and not incredibly interesting. The climax is cool and the actors did a good job, but I wasn't interested in it. I maybe hoped that it was like Amityville 2, where I hated the first but thought the sequel did things better, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. This is worse. Much worse. There's pretty much no plot to this film, as it's constantly trying to invent excuses for its own existence. It kinda just meanders around until there's a climax and some of the worst green screen I've ever seen, and then it ends. The villain of the movie makes no sense and is just kinda there, so there can be some kind of threat in this film, even though they took care of everything in the last film. I do like how there are consequences set up in the first act from the first film, but they go nowhere, and they're pretty much to remind people that, yeah, this is a sequel, everybody! The acting from everyone involved was actually pretty damn good, even Zelda Rubinstein in her small role. Why she was nominated for a Razzie, I have no idea. Julian Beck, though, despite being a villain that makes no sense, was exceptionally creepy, and did a very good job. I also found Jerry Goldsmith's score to be very good, and the effects, outside of the horrible green screen in the climax, to be quite good. Like, the braces scene was kinda awesome, not gonna lie. As well as the weird alien looking cane that Steve pukes up. But despite some moments of quality, they were really few and far between, and for the most part, this was a pretty bland and uninteresting movie. I say if you really love the original and want to see where it goes, it's passable to super fans. But as someone who didn't really care for the first film, I don't want to think about this film any more than I have to.